morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all and everyone, YouTubers and netizens. I'm Alexandrian, Alex for short. I'm here in front of you to introduce the 10 tips of the chief editor of the website yourstoryclub/shortstorypublisher.com on how to make a short story in an easy way. Before we go to the 10 tips on how to make a short story, let's try a review of what is a short story. Short story is a work of fiction or imagination that is usually written in easily understandable grammatical structure with natural flow of speech. Short story is meant to be read at single setting and therefore it should be as direct as possible. Okay, let's go to the tips. Tip number 1. Fewer characters or more than 2 is a crowd. Remember, fewer characters or more than 2 is a crowd. The golden rule for selecting character in a short story is fewer are better. A short story would more effectively convey its meaning if it has very few characters. One protagonist, one other main character, and no supporting or side characters would be ideal. Tip number 2. Develop characters for theme or do not fall in love with your character. Remember, develop characters for theme or do not fall in love with your character. Animating character with perfect adjective and examples are must for connecting readers with a character. However, typically, while writing short stories, do not fall in love with your character and overdo the characterization. Tip number 3. Single and short time frame, one at a time please. Unit of time frame vary from hours to days to weeks to years. The golden rule in selecting the frame for short stories is keep it shorter and have it single. Short story that has setting of few hours may typically be clearer and more effective than with setting of few months or years. Okay, tip number 4. Vivid surroundings appeal to 5 senses of readers. As a writer of short story, you must vividly describe surroundings. Here, vivid description should not be misunderstood by predictable events and action. You may choose to save few description to climax, but whatever you decide to disclose must be absolutely clear and very importantly, be affecting to 5 senses of your readers. Be poetic, use suitable adjectives, script dialogues, or even deploy side characters. Do whatever you need to ensure that the readers leaves your story while reading. Okay, tip number 5. Catch first line or laugh at first sight. Remember, catchy first line or laugh at first sight. You choose a start that your readers gets hooked to the story. Now you may have question how to do this. Well, the answer is not so straightforward. You must know your readers well and they like what they speak, what surprises them, and what arouses their interest. But finally, it's your creativity. Nonetheless, you must create confusion or question in reader's mind by first line of your story. Your reader must try to get answer from best of her ability and experience, but she should finally end up digging into subsequent lines of your stories to quench her temporarily aroused inquisitiveness. Tip number 6. Choose suitable point of view or who narrates it better. You need a tailor who will sew events and action together in a meaningful and fashionable way in your story. Typically, it should be one of the characters you choose, the narrator of the story. Remember, the narrator puts point of view from her or his or its perspective, whose perspective would be better. It is not always perspective of protagonist that would make the plot better. Number 7. One conflict only, one enemy is enough. Have you ever tried resolving a conflict either professionally or personally? If yes, you know it takes time and unfortunately, you don't have time in short stories. Choose only one conflict around the central idea of theme. What does bother your readers? Do you see something that is still not resolved? Can you create confusion by revealing something surprising? I am sure you would get many ideas around any theme by answering this question. But choose one that you can personally relate, something you were recently intensely. Tip number 8. Intense but real conflict. As we discussed, conflict gives life of short story. You must heighten the tension in your plot. Overcoming easy obstruction would not make your lead characters memorable, but do not overdo it. Very rarely a Superman would be fixed in a short story. Even side if conflict, you must show few weakness to make your story real. Tip number 9. Theme in focus. Nothing is nothing less. Every word in short story must be written for the theme. Therefore, it is very important that there is clear to you when you write story. Other elements of short stories, character, setting, plot, and conflict must tightly but comprehensively be tied to the theme. Be very careful not to be tempted to digress even slightly from the theme. While writing short story, you must heartedly decorate the setting and develop the characters, but within narrow object line as specified by the theme. Sometimes it may so happen that you may not be very sure of the theme while starting short story. And tip number 10. Break rules if needed. Unleash your creativity. This is the most important tip for becoming a successful short story writer, or write for yourself. Unleash your creativity without impounding it by any rule. If you feel to break any rule, do it. However, reading these 10 tips for how to make a short stories periodically would help to hone short story writing instinctively. You should also use these 10 tips for how to write short story as checklists to review your short story before submit it for any competition or and the 10 tips that I want to share to you. And thank you. Just like